the only way we're going to get out of this is if we change our relationship with food and the way we value the stimulus. And that in the end is the real story, I think, of tobacco, and very much the story of why we've lost control. The goal of writing this book was to explain to that woman what's going on with her. No one ever told her, right, that her brain was being activated. No one told her she was constantly being cued. Maybe she knew that intuitively, right? But she felt bad about herself. Right? So for the first time, we understand it's not because she's weak or lazy, or lacks discipline. The brain's being activated, and we need to give her the tools to be able to cool down the stimulus if she wants to.
What was the tipping point of the tobacco shift?
It was decades. I remember I had breakfast with Mike Perchuk, who was one of the great tobacco control advocates, former head commissioner of the Federal Trade Commission, early 1990s, and I didn't get it originally. Because I'm a federal official, I'm having breakfast with Mike, and Mike says our job is to demonize the tobacco industry. And I said, what? I mean, it doesn't sound like the job. But what Mike understood and I didn't understand is that demonization changed the valence of the stimulus from something that was positively valenced to something that was negative valence. The other thing that changed, I think, the CEOs, there was a constellation testifying, people got to the point where they didn't want to be manipulated by the tobacco industry. But I think we cooled down the stimulus. Not only did we cool the stimulus, but we made the stimulus, the perception of the stimulus, as an aversive stimulus. All right, let's establish one thing. Diets don't work. Why not? Deprivation only increases the reward value of a stimulus. So if you deprive and you still want it, you're only going to want it more. If you have the old circuitry, the old learning, and it's laid down, and I put you on a diet, will it work? Sure. It'll work for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. But then I put you back in your environment with the same cues, with the same old learning, and what happens? Of course you're going to get stimulated, you'll get bombarded, and eventually gain it back. All right, so how do people who, once the old circuitry is laid down, and increasingly I think there's evidence that it's getting laid down early in childhood, how can you deal with that circuitry and that encoding once you have it? And we all have it probably to some degree. Those 77 million people have full-blown conditioned hypereating, and maybe there's 15% of the population who food is not a very salient stimuli to begin with. But how do you cool a stimulus? You can take the cue away, right? Or don't put that breadbasket in front of it. You can train yourself to do that. You can also not be primed. P-R-I-M-E-D. Once you start, you prime yourself, you're activating the brain circuitry, and you're not stopping, right? So you can avoid starting. But how realistic is it not to be cued in this kind of environment? So what works? How do you take the power out of a stimulus?
Negative reinforcement.
Negative reinforcement? Sure. How practical is it? If I take all your food and I put poison in it, it will stop you eating, right? It's just not a very realistic alternative. Give me...
Societal pressure. You want to do.
Societal pressure works. All right. What's the great success? If you look at public health success, all right. And how did we do smoking? What? A tax on smoking. What was the real change?
On the cigarette tax.
What? The surgeon general? No, my guess. Education. What changed? That's right. Okay. So, what changed? Right? We created a reinforcing product, still a reinforcing product. We didn't change the product, right? Certainly for decades, the industry created the image that it was cool, it was sexy, it was glamorous, people wanted to smoke, right? So in scientific terms, it was positively valenced. And if a reinforcing stimulus is positively valenced, what happens? I approach it, right? What did we do with smoking? We changed that perception. Philip Morris cared. Anyone from Philip Morris in the audience, Altria? It's okay. I have friends. I mean, well, sort of. We were in battle for so many decades. You get to know some of the folks, right? if you look at what we did, right? The one thing that Philip Morris cared about more than anything else, the one number they measured was what? You said it. They polled social acceptability, right? We changed the perception. It was, psychologists call it, Arthur Ludwig coined the term critical perceptual shift, right? We changed it from something that was positively valent, something that was glamorous, sexy, something that I thought I wanted, to something that now you look at and say, that's a deadly, disgusting product. That was the great shift.